In 2019, a software engineer noticed something impossible while updating Google Maps, a town that appeared for exactly 3 minutes every Tuesday at 11:47 p.m., then vanished completely. When he finally tracked down its location and visited, the locals smiled and said, "Welcome back, Daniel. You've been gone for 23 years." The problem? Daniel had never been there before in his life, and according to his birth certificate, he was only 28 years old. Welcome to Lost Mystery Stories. Before we dive into this mind-bending tale of impossible towns, digital anomalies, and the terrifying moment when technology reveals truths we were never meant to discover, tell me in the comments, have you ever noticed something on a map that shouldn't exist? And if you believe these stories of places that exist between the cracks of our reality deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button because tonight's mystery will make you question everything you thought you knew about the world around us. This is the story of a town that exists only in the spaces between seconds, a man who discovered he had a life he never lived, and the impossible choice between two realities that cannot coexist. What would you do if you found a place that remembered you better than you remembered yourself? Now, let's begin our story. Daniel Hayes had always been good at finding patterns. As a software engineer for Meridian Tech, he spent his nights running quality checks on mapping data for millions of users worldwide. It was Tuesday, March 12, 2019, at exactly 11:47 p.m. when the alert appeared. New location detected: Millbrook, population 2,347. Daniel frowned. Towns didn't just appear overnight. He clicked the notification and saw a perfectly rendered settlement nestled in a valley 60 miles north of Portland. Street names, individual houses, even people walking on sidewalks. The detail was incredible. He made a note to investigate and continued working. 15 minutes later, he returned to check the location. It was gone. Nothing but empty forest stretched across the coordinates. Daniel stared at his screen. The notification log still showed. New location detected: Millbrook, population 2,347, time 11:47 p.m., but according to every database he could access, no such town existed. The following Tuesday, Daniel waited. At exactly 11:47 p.m., it happened again. Same town, same 3-minute window, then vanished. This time he was ready. Screenshots, recordings, coordinate data. The town showed subtle changes: different cars, different people walking the streets. He noticed a man walking a dog along Maple Avenue. Something about the man's face looked familiar. At 11:50 p.m. sharp, Millbrook disappeared again. Daniel spent hours analyzing the data. The imagery wasn't fake, too detailed, too consistent, but according to the metadata, the satellite feeds were coming from cameras that didn't exist. Every Tuesday for the next month, Daniel documented Millbrook's appearance. He began recognizing residents, seasonal changes, even local events. The town was alive, but impossible. When he tried showing colleagues, they saw only forest. Worse, when Daniel checked his saved files the next day, they showed only trees. Even his phone photos of his computer screen displayed empty woodland. Using memorized coordinates, Daniel drove to Millbrook's location. Deep in the Cascade National Forest, he found a beautiful valley with a creek running through it. No buildings, no roads, just pristine wilderness. But as he explored, Daniel noticed anomalies. Patches of younger trees, as if land had been cleared decades ago, a depression that could have been a foundation. Most unsettling, a buried road sign, Millbrook Pop. Daniel researched the area's history and found disturbing records. Millbrook had been evacuated in 1996 due to landslide risk and officially dissolved 6 months later. The land was incorporated into the National Forest. In a 1997 newspaper article about a memorial service, Daniel found a group photo of former residents. His blood ran cold when he spotted a familiar face, the man with the dog from the satellite imagery. The caption identified him as Daniel Hayes, former Millbrook resident. The man looked exactly like Daniel, but 25 years older. The next Tuesday night, Daniel arrived at the coordinates before 11:47 p.m. At exactly that time, the forest began to shimmer. Trees became translucent, then transparent. Through their ghostly outlines, lights appeared. The transition was seamless. Daniel found himself sitting on a bench in Millbrook's town square. The town was exactly as he'd seen in the satellite imagery, but being inside it felt different, familiar somehow. An elderly man retrieving his newspaper recognized Daniel immediately. "You feeling all right, son? This is Millbrook," the man said, peering closer. "Wait, you're Daniel Hayes, aren't you? Bob and Martha's boy?" More residents gathered, all greeting Daniel like a long-lost neighbor who'd been gone for 23 years. They acted as if his presence was completely natural. "I've never been here before," Daniel protested. The crowd laughed as if he'd made a joke. At exactly 11:50 p.m., the church bell tolled 3 times. The town shimmered and vanished, leaving Daniel alone in the forest, but the smell of wood smoke still clung to his jacket. Using names he'd learned from the townspeople, Daniel researched former Millbrook residents. In the 1990 census, he found an entry that made his hands shake. Daniel Hayes, age 18, son of Robert and Martha Hayes, residing at 412 Maple Avenue. According to these records, Daniel Hayes had been born in Millbrook on March 15, 19. He'd attended Millbrook High School and left for college just before the 1996 evacuation, but the Daniel reading these records was born March 15, 1991, in Portland. His parents were Stephen and Linda Hayes, names that didn't appear in any Millbrook records. Yet connections emerged. His father's middle name was Robert, like Millbrook's mayor. His mother's maiden name was Morrison, like the elderly man who'd recognized him. "Mom, Dad," Daniel said, sitting in his parents' Portland home, "have you ever heard of a place called Millbrook?" The silence was deafening. Color drained from both parents' faces. "Where did you hear that name?" his father asked quietly. "So you do know it." After a long pause, his mother sighed. "We swore we'd never tell you. Millbrook was our home, Danny. You were born there. You grew up there. That's impossible. You have a Portland birth certificate," his father corrected. "We had it arranged after we moved." From an old chest, his father produced a manila envelope filled with the real records: birth certificate, school photos, report cards from a life Daniel couldn't remember living. Over 3 hours, his parents revealed everything. They had lived in Millbrook for 25 years. Daniel had been raised there, planned to attend college when everything changed. The geological surveys in 1996 found anomalies, his mother explained. Rock formations that shouldn't exist. Scientists started talking about temporal displacement, said Millbrook existed in a bubble where time didn't work normally. The landslide evacuation was a cover story. The real reason was that the government couldn't explain what was happening to Millbrook. Some residents found they couldn't really leave, his father said. Part of them stayed behind, still living in Millbrook as if the evacuation never happened. Every Tuesday night, that part becomes visible. But I don't remember any of it. His parents exchanged a look. "We paid to have your memories altered," his mother said quietly. "You kept talking to the other Danny who lived in Millbrook. We were terrified you might disappear, might choose to go back permanently." "What happens now?" Daniel asked. "Every Tuesday night there's another version of you in Millbrook waiting," his father said. "The pull gets stronger each week. It's what happened to the others who tried to live in both worlds. They went back and never came out." The following Tuesday, Daniel returned to the valley with his parents. At 11:47 p.m., Millbrook materialized around them. This time, a young man emerged from the crowd of neighbors, a man who looked exactly like Daniel, but dressed in 1990s clothes. "Danny," the other Daniel said, voice thick with emotion, "you came back." Yeah, I think I did. I've been waiting every week, hoping you'd remember." "I remember everything, our childhood, our dreams, the day you left for Portland." Daniel looked around at the familiar town square, at neighbors welcoming him home, at his parents reuniting with old friends. "What happens if I stay?" he asked. "I think we become whole again," the other Daniel said, holding out his hand. "I think we become who we were always meant to be." The church bell began to toll. Daniel had to choose, return to Portland or reunite with his other self. He grasped the other Daniel's hand. Memories flooded back, not traumatic but warm and familiar. His childhood in Millbrook merged with his Portland memories, creating a complete picture of who he truly was. As the other Daniel faded into him, the church bell finished tolling, but this time Daniel didn't fade with the town. 6 months later, Hayes Cartographic Services opened in Portland. Daniel specialized in finding places traditional GPS couldn't locate: hidden valleys, forgotten communities, locations existing between official records. What clients didn't know was Daniel's secret source. Every Tuesday night at 11:47 p.m., he consulted with the most comprehensive local knowledge base imaginable, the residents of Millbrook, who remembered every detail of the world's hidden places. Daniel Hayes had found his true calling, mapping the spaces between realities, helping others find the places that existed only in memory and legend. Some towns never truly die. They just wait for someone who understands that the most important places aren't always on the official maps.